Hey folks, welcome back to Nomad Boatbuilding. Today I'm building the Catalina Wherry. We are back working on the lashing rails. Now these are some wooden rails that are going to run the length of the boat that allows Joe to lash his gear down into the bottom. So in the last video we made up some wooden dowels to make those rails, and we used the 7-10-7 rule, which is a very simple geometric trick that we use in wooden boat building to turn rectilinear things into round things. So for spars and oars and all sorts of stuff like that. So go back and watch the last video if you missed it and pick up on that little trick, because it's really useful and I use it all the time. Okay, so this week we're just going to finish installing these rails. So I was playing around with this blocking here. Not sure how easy it is to see. You can just imagine a stick on there. Let's draw that in a little tighter. I'll darken it up on one side. So there's our center line. I think I've decided we're going to go like this. So that's all. This is all waste. This is obviously only half the image there. So that'll be against the hull, this surface here. And that'll park itself neatly into there. Gives us lots of screw holding power in here. So I like the looks of that. And I'm basically working with whatever can fit into 2 inches here. I think that's going to be about right. Putting just a 10-degree bevel on the ends just for fun, just for looks. Do my first side, and then I've got my fence here marked with my overall length. Do it again. I'm cutting these in pairs. I get one more out. Ooh. Barely, but I can. If I cheat this just a little bit, what we'll do is we'll put one of these over here for a standoff. Nailed it. All right, I came up with a plan for this lashing rail. So I'm making these little blocks. It's just got a little groove here so that marries up with the rail itself. And each one needs to get cut down a little bit because the frame depth is not entirely consistent all the way through. And so I need to adjust the height of each one as I do it. So I just thought I'd walk you through how this is going to happen. And I'll probably just put a screw right through these guys and into the blocking, but I'm playing around with the idea of putting a strap over here instead. I'd have to do a different one for on the frames. I kind of like the strap idea just because it doesn't penetrate this so that we don't get any weakness in it at all. But it's a question of how do I make that strap, or is there something commercially available? There are some pad eyes I could potentially use to go on here, but they might be kind of ugly. And then over here it would just be a flat strap of some sort, I think. But that means fabrication, so I have to think about that a little bit. So these guys are being held down with these little plywood straps that I've made. I'm just taking my miter square here, my combination square, drop it on top of my rail there, and that's giving me a height. So with that height, I take one of my blank blocks here, drop a piece of dowel on there, drop my square on top of that, and then mark the bottom of it for the height of my finished block. So let's go through making one of those right now. So we've picked up our height here on this. Now let's go cut a block out. We take a block, drop our dowel on there, Use the other end, depth is a bit better. And I do my best to try and juggle this onto it with one hand. Then we mark our depth. Like so. We mark our depth on there. I can run it down the side if I want. I'm not going to be using it like that, but anyhow, now we'll go over to the bandsaw and we'll set that up. Okay, over here at the bandsaw, I got the table tilted so it matches this angle, and then I'm using my fence here on the opposite side in order to give me something to run this little block against. So there we go, and I'm trying to leave a little bit to dress off. It's a bit hard to dial this in. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then over here in the boat, I just pop my rail up a little bit. Slip the block underneath. There we go. I got a little bit of wheel room, and I think what we'll do is we'll put this in with a good heavy peanut buttery epoxy, and just get them all sort of parked in here and just sort of set them down. I might even tape this block right to the rail so it pulls it up a little bit, but we'll see. I haven't really decided if that's the way to go, but for the most part that feels really good. Back here I decided I wanted to run this rail so that it sort of fell in line with this little detail here. It'll look better if it just sort of jives in with this. I think maybe I'll bring it down a hair. I have it sitting it up a bit higher. Just for looks, if nothing else. Also, I wanted to raise this up here just to provide a little more foot room for the foot brace for rowing and such. Now, my biggest question here is exactly how I want to tie this one in, because I got a plank lap here to deal with, which is a bit dodgy. So I'll have to take a few more minutes to sort of sort that out. Then the last one we'll do a block butted up against this frame here that this just terminates at, I think. So we'll do two more. Don't quite know how I'm going to do this, so let's see if that is, I'm going to call that good. There, should I bring it down a hair maybe? Let's see. All right, while I'm fussing around with that rail, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my followers on Patreon who make these videos possible. This week I want to give a shout out to Gregory Goodman, David Pierce, Dan Walker, and of course my most loyal follower of all, Matt Evanscock, who makes a point of watching the videos both on Patreon and over here on YouTube and likes to comment in both places. So if you've been enjoying these videos and you'd like to help me keep making more, please consider joining me on Patreon. You can find links in the corner or down in the description. So that's there. And this block is going to notch right there. I have to approach this one entirely different, I think. All right, let's see if we can figure this one out. All right, I don't like this. I don't like the way this overhangs the lap. I think it looks really sloppy. So I think I'm just going to chop this off. Just come straight up. That's what I'm going to do. I think I came up with something that I like, so I just sort of chopped one side off of these guys so it just lands flush with the edge of the plank. I think that's going to look okay. Just need to do a little bit of rounding off around the edges of these guys, I think. Maybe I should sand down that end grain just a hair on them. I have to figure out how I want to glue them in. Probably something like I think I might just like use a combination of these guys. Maybe we do this in 2 stages. That's probably a smart idea. Use these guys to hold it down. Get the blocks maybe taped onto the stick so they stay snug to it. Thick epoxy to give them the exact perfect mating. So this little notching now, it's just a tiny bit. It's going to really help to sort of lock these into the right spot. Make this installation way easier. Nice. Yeah, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. Darn it. There's just never enough clamping power. Okay, well, I guess I'll play around with a couple more sticks to help sort of dial this in. Maybe I need some rigid clamping blocks. That would probably be smart. Just little C-clamps. All right, we got all of our blocking in. And I used all these little shores here to just spring that batten down into shape. Now, I didn't record the glue up because it was just sort of, it was really awkward. You were never going to see anything interesting. But the idea behind the shores is I could isolate the little batten where I wanted it to and basically spring the whole thing up out of the way in order to squeeze the block underneath and deal with the tooling out of all the joints and all that sort of stuff. So that all works really well. I can take those shores off. So what I think I want to do now is take the dowel here. I think I'm going to wrap a bit of packing tape around it in the locations where it's going to be fixed. And I'm going to do a second glue up where I'm taking some thickened epoxy and I'm just going to fill this joint here either side and create basically kind of a little tiny version of one of these, but it's just going to be solid epoxy. And we'll just put all of this back in. I think I'll set this up to do the screws right away, and then once it's all done, I can just unscrew these and it'll all align. We'll just do a little cleanup of all the sort of squeeze out, clean up all the rough stuff. I was playing around with how to fasten these, and I think I decided I'm going to do this. Just use a stainless steel round-headed screw, and we'll do a little counterbore there so that it can sit flush. And that way I get maximum holding power without the risk of splitting this dowel open. And it doesn't protrude, it looks neat. I tried using finishing washers on here, it looked terrible. And so I decided to not go with that. And I could do straps across here. That might be the best way to go, but it's a lot of work, a lot of extra work that I don't think is worth it. So we're going to go with this little solution. If for whatever reason these don't prove to work in the long run, I was thinking Joe could actually replace this rail with aluminum, get aluminum tubing and fit it in there. Okay, put this one off. Well, that's a bit better. And just get some alignment here. Okay, we want to basically round off that end. Now the other end. Okay, there we go. All right, into the boat. Up there. Get a few props on to hold it in position. All right, those are all tucked in where I want them. Now I'm going to do some little pilot holes in each of these locations. Just the way I like to do stuff like this is I like to do my first hole that is the core diameter of the screw. And then I'd follow up with my clearance holes and my countersinking and all that. Now we're doing a counter bore, and for that I use a Forstner bit, and so I need a smaller pilot hole than normal. So I think I'm just going to do like I don't know, a 3/32 pilot hole or something like that, something that's much smaller, that the lead spur on the Forstner bit can follow more easily. So that's my plan there. So let me get that set up and we'll start drilling. Okay, I've got this set up with just a 3/32 bit, and I'm going to just eyeball center on all of these guys and square to the direction that it has to pull in. And I've set this drill bit up to be it's at its longest is as deep as I can go on my shortest run. So I'm not going to worry about blowing through the planking anywhere. Okay, now we're going to do some counter bores on the stringers here, these lashing rails. And I'm just marking the very end of them with port and starboard stamps so that it is easy down the road to tell which one is which. Okay, I'm starting these with a Forstner bit because the Forstner bit's got a nice spur edge on there, so it'll cut that grain nicely. But what I found was I was drifting off a little bit because oak is just it's hard stuff, and it really kind of leads the bit astray. So I'm just going to get it going just a tiny bit, cut that end grain, but then I'm going to come back, and I have modified a countersink by grinding off the beveled end and creating a counter bore. And so I'm going to be actually drilling these out with the counter bore, which is going to follow that little hole a little bit better, that pilot hole. There we go. Nice. That one run off. No, I guess not. That one felt like it just was careening off the course. So maybe I didn't drill that one quite as square to the stick as possible, which is unfortunate. You got to watch out when you're using tapered bits for this kind of thing. They tend to want to grab and haul you, pull themselves through at a rather alarming rate. You got to sort of resist them a little bit. Okay, let's get that rail installed. So I've put a big glob of peanut butter thick epoxy on all of the frames. Now we're just going to tack these guys in. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to add a little more tension here. Good. All right, and now the trick is just trying to, well, I'm not going to tool this into anything that's neat, but what I am going to do is just try and tool all of this out so that it's got a sort of a halfway controlled shape that I can work with after it's cured. Everything here is such an awkward shape that there's not very little I can do. It's one of those dealies where you get to touch it like once. So I've basically glued it in, although it's not on purpose exactly, partially on purpose, but so in a nutshell, all of these tabs I've created here are holding this in place. So I'm just going to peel back the packing tape that I've got holding the rail in there. Okay, almost. Okay, so now I should be able to, yeah, there we go. Just pop it off. All this packing tape just comes away. It worked really nicely. Okay, I'll put this to the side. So now the trick is going to be how to deal with shaping all of these guys down. And I've already done the other side, so I know where we're going here. Let me just get a couple tools together and then we'll tackle that. Okay, so to clean these up, I'm just starting by leveling them off. And I'm bringing them down until they're just a little under half the diameter of the dowel that's fitting in there. And then knock off the junk. So what I'm finding with some of these is my epoxy didn't really fill in as nicely as I would like right around the edges. I might come back and do a little spot filling. So now I've just rolled the sides in a little bit. Then I'm just grabbing just a piece of sanding belt here. And I just start working these corners down. Try and fill in here, try and get that sort of sanded out smooth. And on some of these I'm a little sloppier around there, so I've got to do a little extra work just to sort of clean up the face of the frame a little bit. Anyhow, there's a whole bunch more just like that, just working away at it until I got a nice smooth finish. And hopefully I won't have to do too much filling to sort of doctor these up. It's a pretty small detail, but I'd like it to be nice just the same. That's all there is to that. That's going to go pretty quickly. Get all of them done. And I won't bother putting those rails back in, I don't think, until we're ready for assembly. All right, folks, that was the last job I wanted to do before getting the inwales and breast hooks in and finishing up the shear structure of the Catalina Wherry. So we'll take care of that in the next episode, and I hope you join me again. Ciao for now, folks.